Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. As you've heard, I'm Jane. I'm Director of Design and User Experience at MOO. I don't know if anyone's heard of MOO. We do business cards, and we're all about helping our customers tell their story better. So we're a B2B business, helping people grow their own businesses. And before that, a long time ago, before the Telegraph, I was at gov.uk, GDS. And do you know what? I wanted to say everything I've heard today and gov.uk, the work that's happening in government, it's an absolute beacon for the rest of us. You should be incredibly proud. All the stuff coming out of government about being user-centred is just fantastic. And I'm so excited to be here because I'm sure I'm going to come away after learning something. So what I wanted to talk about today was all the things you need when you need great design. Actually, which is a slight lie, I'll be honest. It's some of the things you need when you need great design, because I've only got 30 minutes. And to be even more specific, it's some of the things you need when you need great design specifically for building great digital products. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And to begin, I wanted to talk about some anti-patterns, some things I see that are really bad design. So you feel free to give me like a groan or a cheer or express your frustration in another way when you see these. So the first one is doing a big round of upfront design with one round of research at the end. We all live through that. That's particularly bad because it's like research that's almost meaningless. It's research just to give people the permission to ship. It's nothing about actually learning. It's about, who's actually ever going to do this and say, oh, it's so disastrous, we can't ship. It's more of a kind of a confirmation that things aren't that bad. Anyone saying I'm the expert? Designers delivering overcomplicated design solutions to prove they're a genius. I've got some nodding at the front. Anyone calling themselves a design genius? Designers disparaging other people's opinions because they're not designers. There's some nodding over there. Being unable to integrate multivariate testing into a site, so you end up with this Frankenstein site. There's a major kind of travel booking site that does this. I don't know if you've seen it or tried to use it. Anyone saying it's what the business wants? Probably in your world, it's what the minister wants. Hundreds of marauding BAs giving the design team a list of requirements to color in. Defensive documentation. We've all been subject to that. Design team with no connection to data or KPIs. They don't really know how to measure what they're doing. Product managers who really just care about metrics and experiments, so it's really hard to get qual research landed. And designers who don't really know what's happened after they've released their design. They just go on and do the next thing without really learning from it. For me, these are the anti-patterns of bad design. And another way to describe it is something like this, with a design team just throwing designs over at a development team, sometimes offshore, sometimes not. But this kind of world of just showing huge amounts of prototypes or big designs covered in annotations, when in fact, this is what you want, a unified crew. The designers, the product managers, the developers, maybe an analyst, all working together in this one unified crew. But what does design look like in this world? So the first thing I wanted to say is that design needs to move to more of a facilitation role. As we saw in Al's talk there's very little actual design as you might think about it going on, but there was an enormous amount of facilitation, and that's where the designer role is moving to much more. And I wanted to tell you a story from the Telegraph. This is the lovely logo that we did for the authoring project. So when I started at the Telegraph, there was a lot of things that were not going particularly well. And one of the things was they noticed that, or there was a realization that they didn't have something digital for the World Cup other than a section on the website. So we decided that we would do this little project called Project Bab, and it was great because it had a very hard deadline, like the start of the World Cup. You couldn't move that deadline. And it went really well. It was a really good project. But one of the most interesting things that came out of it was the sports journalist came to us and went, that is the best content management system we've ever used. And we were like, yeah, but it's WordPress. And they were like, no, trust us. It is the best content management system we've ever used. So we did a bit of investigation, and we discovered all the different bits of putting an image into an article was a bit like this. You might have experienced something like this yourself. So we wanted to prove how bad this problem was, and we did some ethnographic research, which means observing people in their natural habitat. So we went and looked at all the different journalists, different types of story, different types of day, different type of news desks, and we discovered some insanity, like the picture of the day took nearly 2 hours. We had these Oxford-educated journalists basically spending 2 hours sticking some pictures together. What a waste of time. And it took half an hour to get an article with an image onto the website. This is not writing the article, this is just simply getting it onto the website, which meant that there was a huge amount of wasted labor and a huge amount of unhappy journalists. So using this, and this is a very interesting thing, using this, we were able to quantify what the problem was and then get buy-in from the CFO to go and fix the problem. So numbers are very useful. So the next thing we did was get journalists into workshops where we asked them to map out like what the whole experience end-to-end of getting a story online. We had a bit of a secret, little secret here, because the CFO said, how do we know that people are going to use this product? You know, we buy lots of different things. How can we get people to use it? What's the rollout plan? So our product manager decided that our secret rollout plan would be happiness. If we made the journalists happy, they'd want to use the new product we were designing. We didn't have to force them because they'd be so happy they'd want to use it. Now, you can't really see this there. I'm going to zoom in. But we mapped out the end-to-end process, and we said, if it makes you happy, put it up at the top. If it makes you sad, put it down at the bottom. And you can see there, happy and sad. And the thing that made people really, really unhappy was putting an image into an article and putting that article online, which was great. That was the first thing that we should start with. This was our roadmap. So there you go. There's our very first roadmap. Really, really simple. And actually, you can see behind that's the Telegraph newsroom. In the middle was the thing the editor had an idea of, where you put all the editors together, and he called it the Circle of Trust. He was American. And then it got rechristened by the journalists into the hot tub. So that's the hot tub behind. And this is our first ever roadmap. And we started out by doing, what's the smallest thing we can get to fix this? Like doing ideation sessions with journalists. We got very, very quickly to a very simple prototype. And then we took that to the journalist. And it was fantastic because we had our users right there in the building. They couldn't escape us. So we had, oops. This is crazy, sorry, it keeps bouncing. Yeah, so we had all the different people in the team. So as you can see here, that we had UI, research, product manager, developer, all sitting together and all observing the journalists using the product as we built it. We did this every 2 weeks, so we had this fitted in with the rhythm of the newsroom, and also fitted in with the rhythm of the sprints, this cadence of the sprints. Every 2 weeks, we'd try something, learn something, go back and fix and iterate. And the other secret thing we did was we got the CEO to come and observe user research. And one thing I've discovered, and I've actually read a fantastic tweet about this, the more senior you get, the more people lie to you. And this may be true of your ministers as well. So if you can get some of them to come and see just how bad the experience is for people, this could be a thing to help you get your product given the green light. So this is what it looks like now. That's the top. There's the bottom, and I'm going to show you what it looks like in action. So it was built on Adobe AEM because reasons. So this bit isn't us. This is what we did. So the simplicity is deceptive. So this is us going in, entering the tags, and you only see what you need when you need it. So we have a very simple, very calming interface. Selecting the image, again, this is deceptively simple because the enormous amount of work to actually create a digital asset management, a DAM, where people can go and select the images and make sure that all the rights were managed, again, was incredibly difficult. But we solved each problem gradually, so then would help us understand what the problem was, rather than buying a digital asset management or going off in like a 2-year program to create a huge digital asset management without really knowing what we needed to fix. We did it very gradually. This is us adding the author. And we also discovered that journalists still like to write in Word, and rather than stopping them, we allowed them just to cut and paste the Word article in. Yeah, and the amazing designer who did this, I think, is sitting over there. Is that you, Mel? Yay! That's Mel, so you can go and talk to Mel later if you want to hear more about this amazing project. So I grabbed her, and she's working with me at MOO now. So here's the before and after. So before was 27 minutes and after 4 minutes, incredibly time-saving. We had all these amazing quotes, just bloody amazing. Oh, look, it's telling me off, I like that, which I always imagine some like slightly kinky public school boy saying. There's one that really annoyed me, is even my mother could use this, because I got so annoyed using mothers as this kind of unit of stupidity. That really pissed me off. But anyway, apart from that, we managed to bring it down from 58 steps to 12 steps, and it was a fantastic piece of work. So what did we learn from that? Using facilitation techniques to explore the problem space with the team. Having everyone knowing the same thing at the same time, so you didn't have to have so many meetings. Instead of spending time in meetings, you were spending time in research. And this allowed you to build a shared deep understanding. Having strong opinions lightly held, because you're not always going to agree all the time, but you go with what you think is the best idea. And if you're the person who doesn't agree with it, then you can't sit around moaning. You have to disagree and commit. That means you'll say, okay, I'll put it on record, I don't agree with this, but then you work hard to make the agreed result happen. And 0 to 1, you have to bake in analytics from the start. So there were so many debates that happened around this product that we were able to answer just by pulling the data. And had we not had that, we would have wasted so much time and energy having these kind of meaningless, hollow debates that were just based on opinion. So if you're building anything new, it's really important to think about what you need to measure right from the start. So the other thing that gives you good design for digital products is cross-functional crews. I've heard people talking about this today. So cross-functional, it depends on what kind of business you're in, what that cross-functional means. Some places it could be your service manager needs to be there, or a minister. With us at MOO, we have cross-functional teams which are product managers, developers, and we're mapped to each stage of the user experience. So we have e-com. So each one of these are little crews, and then they're wrapped around by a more strategic set of people and into tribes. And we have e-com, where you can go and browse to buy. Creates, where you actually make our flyers and our postcards and our business cards. And then MBS is MOO Business Services. So that's our kind of B2B enterprise solution, and we have clients like Airbnb. And this is what a crew looks like. Each crew has their own little television, so you can see what they're up to, who's in the crew. Here you go. That's Pixel. So you see the kind of makeup of a crew here, which is like product, tech, agile, lots of software engineers, and we have an automation engineer, so we can start doing test-driven delivery and ultimately continuous delivery. The other thing we do is measure the health of the crews. What I mean by team health is like how happy people are, but not in a kind of like fluffy happy way. But we use happiness to think about as a leading indicator of the quality of the product, because if the team is shipping stuff, they're autonomous, they believe in what they're doing, they're working really well, they think they're putting out great code and great products, you know you're going to get a great product out at the end of it. So it's a really good idea to monitor the team health, because it will give you an indication of the quality of the thing they're working on. So this is a piece of artwork from weve. It's called Bang. And the reason I chose this is it's a picture of lots and lots of three-legged stools. There was a really interesting blog post from Axel Schiffer, who's the Vice President of Design for Airbnb. And he talked about design, or like good digital products should be like a three-legged stool. You have business/product, you have design, and you have technology. And the three of them need to work together and make decisions in concert. And that way you get a nice, stable product, like a nice, stable stool. And if one of them has too strong an opinion, the stool starts getting wobbly, and that means the product starts getting wobbly. But at MOO, like a three-legged stool isn't enough for us. We have a four-legged stool. We have a comfy chair. And we put it on wheels so we go really fast. We have a quad. And what I mean by a quad is product, design, technology, and a role called an agile delivery coach. I believe some government teams are using this. And there's a kind of like set thing that each discipline does, but obviously because of the kind of knowledge and skill sets they have, different activities that go on are naturally drawn to a particular skill set. So this is what it looks like. So product is around building sort of the vision for the product, or shaping the future of the product. And I like to think about that as build the right thing. Design, MOO are called EXD, is about building the right thing, so also supporting that vision with research and with facilitation exercises, but we're also about execution as well, about crafting amazing experiences, and I call that build the thing right. Technology, in this instance, is all about execution, and so we say that they're building the thing right. They're talking about building a great product. An agile delivery coach, again, sits between the two worlds, facilitates conversations, thinks about supporting on the roadmap, removes impediments, and together we delight customers. We build and run fantastic products, and we have team hugs. Now, what does this look like? So I mentioned build the right thing, and build the thing right. So there's almost like different phases of approaching the project. I'm sure you've all seen this. It's a classic double diamond model of how to approach design projects. And with build the right thing, that's when we do the generative research, when we come up with ideas of what the product might be. And build the thing right is summative research, which is your classic usability research. So this is the sort of standard double diamond model. You'll see IBM have attempted to patent this. They call it IBM Design Thinking. The Design Council has released something about this. So you can see lots of these models. But actually, I kind of think it's not enough for digital products. I think there's this shaping the problem space. And I saw one of the speakers earlier also talk about this as well, that if you're having a digital transformation, thinking about very, very early on, thinking about what the problem space is and using research to unpack this really helps your products be properly user-centered. And the way we do this is with ethnographic research for unmet needs, and we also map, because we're in a commercial world, we map this with business strategy. So think, is there a problem here? Do enough people have that problem? And is there enough money to be made out of solving that problem? In the startup world, this is kind of known as product market fit. And as product designers, digital product designers, the way our work exists in the world is that we ship it. That's the main reason that we exist. So when we ship, sometimes we look at different versions of a design or different versions of a flow to see which one works best, and we measure this by doing multivariate testing or A/B testing. So that's when we're shipping all the different things to see which one works best. And then once we get an answer, we break it into these little shippable increments. And that's how we do design for continuous delivery. So if you have a big tech team and they're shipping every day, which is what really tech teams should be doing, what happens to design in that world? Do they have to cling on by their fingers, this big tech juggernaut? Or do they think about little chunks of work that the design team can pick up and work on? Well, the design team is thinking more about the strategic questions as well. So I'll show you this in action. So shaping the problem space. This is a cultural probe. This was the first cultural probe. It was thought up by the Royal College of Arts. They had a really interesting sort of masters in digital design, and they started talking about cultural probes. Now we do it via smartphones. We ask people to take pictures and diary studies, and we give them missions. So we tell them to go and do 3 things and record what happens when we're doing it. And that way we can, rather than having to like send an ethnographer out into the field and spend a huge amount of time talking to our customers, we're able to do it remotely, and we gather huge amounts of data very cheaply and very quickly. Once we understand kind of what the problem space is, we move into build the right thing. One of the techniques we use to make sure we're building the right thing is to write a problem statement. And this is a really good thing to work on with your very senior leaders. You might not get this right first time, but actually even just attempting to write this can really expose lots of confusion, lots of disagreement, and the fact that you don't even, measuring again is really, really important. How are you going to measure if you've succeeded or not? So we do this is a thing called a lean canvas. So we start to build up all our knowledge. We know the problem space, we know the measurable criteria. We start building up our knowledge in this picture before we even start designing, and that's done with the designer and the product manager and the researcher together. So one of the things we call out here is assumptions. What do we think we know, but we don't actually know? And this is a quote from William of Ockham. We've all heard of Occam's razor. So what we try to do is remove the assumptions. And if we have big, big assumptions, let's go and try and resolve them first through research. We also, this way, trying to formulate what we think we know in structure of hypothesis. Again, we heard that earlier. We have a hypothesis backlog. We're still experimenting with the best way to do this. We can have it in Trello. We've been looking at Airtables. Sometimes it's just a list of Post-it notes, where we call out things we think we know, things we don't know, and then we try and formulate that into tests. So I'm showing you one from the Telegraph here that's quite out of date, because these can be really business sensitive. But you see here things, we had a hypothesis. We saw that people weren't scrolling down the page. We thought, whoa, is it because the image is too big? Is it because of something else? And we started calling out all our hypotheses. And then from there, we formulated some tests, some multivariate tests, some user research to understand if what we thought was right. Sometimes we thought we were right, so it didn't work out. That's the red, so we retested it. If it's green, we validated it, and that was something we would then go and ship. This is actually done by an ex-colleague of mine, Michael Lee, who's at Pivotal Labs now, and he did an absolutely brilliant blog post in this. So if you want to know more, go and search that out. So this is another example of build the right thing. This is our MOO Business Services team in Providence, America. And their account managers and salespeople said to us, we think we can sell more to better customers if we have an approval flow. And we were like, okay, let's go over. We started doing some sketching sessions, kind of thing we've seen. So we started mapping it all out. We did a little bit of user research. And we came to these really, really beautiful designs. Everyone in the business was bought in. We could have actually started building these at this point. But, big but, there was an assumption because we'd only tested with 5 people. And we realized the biggest assumption that we had was that this would work for all businesses. We didn't know that. Because how homogenous are businesses? Because you might have somebody buying the print, somebody using the print, somebody approving the print. That may be the same person, it may not. Where did they all work? How did they all map together? We realized we didn't have a full enough picture of this to go and build something for them. So we went back right to the start and created some sketches like this that we could take out to our potential customers. And the reason we went back to sketches is this isn't really designed for design's take. This is designed as provocation. It's designed to show to people to stimulate a conversation. So one of the things when you're doing research, it's really good to show the thing. Because you have an idea in your mind, it might be different to somebody else's idea in their mind, but if you're both looking at something concrete, you can both have a much more richer and rewarding conversation. So we did several rounds of research, and we discovered that actually all businesses are different. They're really different. And not even businesses different, but departments are different. And so our proposed plan of having this lovely approval flow wasn't going to work. So we decided what was the least thing, what was the minimum effort we could give to get maximum value to the customers. And we realized that it was simply an email. So that was it. That's build the right thing. So then we moved to build the thing right. So what did we have to do? We had, this was the original email we sent, and this was the potential email that we could send. And there were so many questions. Where should the button sit? What should it say? Should we actually show the cards or not? Was it active or passive approval? And this is about executing on the design. So we went through. The team sat together, including the researchers, and we looked at people using it and did a little card, this kind of affinity map to see what problems we had, which ones were the big problems, which were the little, and then iterated on that. And we used this map to map user value to effort. And you can see if something is giving a lot of value and it's not that much effort, that's what we do first. So again, as part of your digital transformation, you should have this culture of thinking, what's the maximum value we get for minimum effort? So this is one of these maps in action at MOO. And then once we understand what we have to do, we ship. So here's an example of shippable increments. So we designed a drop-down for a menu containing all the different fonts, and you can see we actually showed all what the different fonts looked like. But we didn't have to ship that first. It was really difficult. Just simply having a drop-down menu was going to get value to our customers as soon as possible. So we did this. And the next thing we decided, could we bold out the different elements in the drop-down? Would this help? We looked at it. Actually, not a lot of people were using it, but what we did notice was there's a lot of people using a similar set of fonts repeatedly. So it made sense for the next enhancement to be what they had recently searched for. And this way, we had little chunks of work that the tech team could pick up and start building. And we didn't have to be running behind them trying to throw them designs because we'd thought long enough in advance in all these little chunks. So shippable increments is the way to ship really good products really quickly. So this thing I was talking about, maximum value for minimum effort, this is something that we try to permeate throughout the organization. So have you ever had this experience? Or this? or this? Or indeed this? So we actually found that our customers were having similar problems because we speak a lot to customer services and what kind of problems they get. And people were getting cards and they were surprised by the size because you see we can have square and mini. So there was loads of things we could have done to solve this. We could have punched up the dimensions, but that might have had an impact on the price. But actually the most simplest thing to do was just give context. So even the marketing team are thinking about this maximum value for minimum effort. So here's the things we've learned. The design team needs to be collaborative and iterative, and you need to work together to ideate and create solutions that people observe, people actually using the product together. You don't need huge amounts of research documentation if people are observing the research. Disagree and commit, again. And you have the quad in the room, and everyone trusts them to make good decisions. So it doesn't mean that you have everyone there in every meeting. So it's consent, not consensus. That's how you move quickly. And then you have the planned shippable increments, and you see people using it, using data and analytics, and then you track the metrics and signals, and you evolve. So we have these autonomous crews. How do you have consistency when you have autonomous crews? So what we do is atomic design. So this is one of our category pages. But when you remove the content, it becomes a template. When you break this template apart into chunks, it becomes organisms. You break these organisms apart and they become molecules. And then a very smallest unit, like a button or a title, becomes an atom. You put all of these together, that's called atomic design. So we have each thing that we design. If more than one person is using it, it becomes a pattern. So more than one team's using it, and it sits in a huge sketch file. And then people can access this and build pages really, really quickly so they can save their time for all the design thinking that comes first. Here's one in action. And the design is done. So this way, your designers aren't spending so much time executing, they're spending time thinking. We have also for the marketing team, and the developers also have a library of code that they can combine as well. But to do this, you need the right people with the right attitude. So I've observed that the people I like to hire are people that are comfortable with ambiguity, because you don't know what the right answer is. You have to work around to it. And that means you need stamina, you need resilience. And it's not about doing pretty pictures, it's about bringing a business or organization along with you and getting design thinking at every layer. And that means you need to be comfortable with healthy and productive conflict. So you need to be emotionally aware, and you need to be very comfortable influencing strategy as well as executing it. And you have to be happy being part of the design team and also embedded in the crew. So I always say that hiring is a little bit like reverse human Tetris. And trying to stop it go wrong. So interviewing is really important. So this is the team at MOO. This is the design team. But the final thing I wanted to say is great culture. Great culture is how you get great execution, is how you do a great digital transformation. And it's not just about having these beautiful offices, although I'm showing the MOO offices off right now, but it's about having this growth mindset that people grow themselves as well as trying to grow the business. It's about being open and agile. It's about being open to being wrong. It's about reframing failing as learning. It's about being collaborative. It's being thoughtful. And it's also about caring for the customer. And that's it. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. I hope I've not kept you too late for lunch, chaps. Sorry.
No, all good. I think we've definitely got time for a few. You are staying for the panel at the end of the day.
Yes.
Awesome. Love the human Tetris. Wonderful talk. A couple of questions for Jane before we break for lunch. Can we see some hands? There's a gentleman here, yes.
You mentioned culture, you mentioned happy people, and what was the third one?
I've forgotten. Say that again. I mentioned culture.
You mentioned culture.
Uh-huh.
Key element, you mentioned happiness. I like having teams. What do you do to achieve that within your team?
Well, as an organization, we invest a lot into our culture because we're scaling. But also, I think making a team happy. It's not about like fluffy things or going bowling. It's about giving them autonomy, making sure that they really believe in what they're working on, making sure that they're all listened to and that they're executing on something they think is great. So it's about making the culture able for them to do really, really great work. It's not about, you can't just like paper stick over it with like a bottle of wine and some crisps on a Friday night. So happiness is not that fluffy metric. It's a real practical business thing.
Yes, Serena.
Gosh, yeah, there's huge amounts. Yeah, there's really huge amounts. Interestingly, the Envision blog, that was the tool that we were using there. They've got some fantastic stuff. But come and grab me at lunch and I'll try and find out some, I'll just try and remember. But there's so many different resources out there, definitely.
Would that be a useful, we could pull something together and circulate a sort of resources list based, from pulling in from all the speakers. We'll do that for you, so we'll get some useful stuff out. One more question before luncheon. Anna.
It's kind of a really practical one. So it's when you were saying about observing people and them taking like 28 minutes to perform a task, and then obviously being able to sort of benchmark and then compare against that. How did you do that so they weren't under pressure and going, oh, I'm going to be really focused
Oh,
So it's
yes.
actually, like, really realistic.
Well, these are all techniques that kind of contextual research and ethnographic research talk about a lot. So it's a lot about framing and how you sit and how you talk to them, and also you tell them what you're doing. You know, you explain the process and that you're not there to make sure that they're working quickly and you report back to their boss. It's about, like, we're about to create something that's going to make life helpful for you. Can you show us? So these are all sort of research techniques. And again, it's like worth reading about how you do that and how you frame what you're going to do with your participant.
Lovely. Thank you, Jane. That
Thank
was
you.
great. So very, very briefly, we're going to break for lunch now. We've got about an hour and a bit for lunch, so take your time. Make sure you chat to all the people you want to chat to. I do just want to say a few words, which I haven't said already, to thank our sponsors today, who are Balsamic and My Life Digital. And Jay from My Life Digital will be talking to us after lunch about data consent and GDPR. But big thanks to them for helping make today a reality. So thank you to Jane, and let's have lunch.